This is River Ridge Frame Shop, called Frame It Today, where we can take your art, customize it, and get it ready to hang on the wall. Here at River Ridge Hardware, 2803 West Garland.
Welcome to a new kind of talk show, Spokane Talks, where you find news, views, and conversations that include respect for opinions, facts, and diversity.
Spokane Talks, Saturdays at 8 a.m. on Fox 28.
Welcome to the region's only public safety talk show. It's time again for the Sheriff's Report, your weekly report from Spokane County Sheriff Ozzie. Sheriff's Report covers a variety of public issues in Spokane County and is now in its 4th year on the air. Sheriff's Report is sponsored by River Ridge Hardware. Now, here's your host, Sheriff Ozzie.
Good morning, this is Sheriff Ozzie with the Sheriff's Report. Today, in the studio with me, I have Spokane Valley City Councilwoman Brandi Peetz, and we're going to talk about some of the issues that are facing the valley, some of the challenges that you're seeing out there, and some of the exciting things that you have going on out in the valley. So, for those of our audience that don't really know you, why don't you give us a little bit of a breakdown for you?
On me or what's going on? Okay, so I'm Brandi Peetz. I'm a Spokane Valley City Councilwoman, and I've been on the council for, it'll be 2 years in November. And so I've been a Valley resident for 28 years and just really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Homelessness.
Yes.
Major issue.
Absolutely.
Major issue. We have people camping in the parks out in the valley.
We do.
And we need to find a resolution for that because it's a safety issue for the citizens of the valley.
Absolutely.
And it isn't a good idea to have those type of camps right in the center of the city. So kind of give me an idea of what the Valley Council is working on to one, help us get rid of those camps, and two, solve some of the homeless issues, because this really, I hate to break it to people this way, but this really isn't a Spokane Valley issue. This is a City of Spokane issue that is bleeding all over the region.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And you know, it is a little bit different in the valley than it is in surrounding areas, and so people don't see it. It's not as visible in Spokane Valley as it is in other places. However, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. And in the valley, one of the biggest things that we have a problem with is the teen homelessness as well. And so they're couch surfing, you know, versus the regular homelessness that you see in surrounding areas. However, our parks are being inundated with homelessness issues. And so we've had numerous complaints, and we are absolutely trying to be proactive in this. And as a matter of fact, on Tuesday, we talked about this. It was brought up in our advanced agenda. And one of the things that we're having a hard time with is, obviously, everybody knows the Martin versus Boise, the Boise circuit decision that happened, that came down. And so one of the things about that is that you have to have a shelter. Well, we don't have one. And so we were working and having conversations, as you know, with the county and the city for that piece of property on Havana. And really, quite frankly, no matter what location we choose, people are going to be unhappy. You know, it does have, you know, its pros and cons. However, I personally believe that it's a good regional project for us, and we need to be proactive. So if it's something that ends up not working out, you know, later on down the road, we know we can always walk away from it. But right now, we need to do something. And so not only is it a good location because it's regional, it's, you know, in between both cities, and also too, it's near transportation. It has plenty of space. And so it's definitely something we need to be looking at. And so we as a council decided that we were going to continue the conversation with the city and the county and see what we can come up with.
One of the unique aspects for the Valley is that for years you haven't taken a portion of a tax that you could have used. You've donated it basically back to the region to help deal with homeless issues.
Right.
So the Valley has, in that sense, taken care of their portion of this problem.
Correct.
And it seems to me a little disingenuous of the city of Spokane to say that, well, nobody else is helping us with this issue, when in fact the city of the Valley has. My question is, and it's kind of maybe a rhetorical question, you might not want to even answer this, I'll just bring it out there for people out that are listening. When is one of these city councils going to take this to the United States Supreme Court? Because I do not think that the Constitution mandates that we give people free stuff. And that is a harsh reality. We have to start providing ways for people to get out of the problem. This is not a solution. This is just a place for them to come and flop.
Right.
Now, I hate to break it to you folks, that is exactly what this is. This is just a place for the people to come and flop. If we really wanted to change the dynamic, we'd be trying to provide them with a way to get a job, maybe improve their job skills. But these people that are out there right now, this isn't economic, folks. This is not an economic downturn that has people out on the street. This is self-inflicted. These are people that are drug addicted, and providing a place for them to simply flop is not the answer. So I look forward to the day that a city council finally has the courage to take this to the Supreme Court and have this Boise decision overturned, because I really think we have too many activist judges making decisions that are hampering your ability as a councilwoman to maintain the safety of your communities. And that is just a harsh reality. How about the next thing we talk about being what we're doing in the mental health field?
Yes.
And your support of our crisis teams. The Sheriff's Office in the city of Spokane, we have developed crisis teams that a mental health worker actually is riding with one of our deputies on patrol.
Yes.
And we respond to all the mental health issues and folks. I rode with the deputies on a New Year's Eve, and we responded to purely domestic violence and mental health issues. And I responded to more mental health issues in that one night than I used to see when I worked patrol in 6 months. Mental health is a far bigger issue than the homeless issue. Again, the homeless issue is a byproduct of the mental health issue.
Correct.
So with the teams that we have, they're grant funded, and we'd like to have one of these teams on each shift.
Right.
So what's the Valley City doing, and what's your opinion of the crisis teams?
Well, I'm really glad you brought this up, because I was very excited. We talked about this on Tuesday. We went over some of our budgetary items, and we actually just voted $100,000 to cover the cost of payroll for a behavior specialist, so they can ride along with the deputy. And most people probably already know this, I'm sure you do too, but we were awarded the True Blood grant. So once we figure out where exactly that's going, into what jurisdictions, we will be able to offset some of those costs. And so whatever we have left after that co-response team has been funded, we can use towards some mental health programs or transportation or whatever it is that we need in the Valley. And so these co-response teams are amazing. I mean, they came and gave a presentation to us, and I mean, I've definitely know what's going on in the criminal justice system, but to have the figures and facts and what it's bringing to our community, it's amazing for our citizens and people who are experiencing mental health crises. And so one of the things for me about this is that I try to go on ride-alongs as often as I can. Things are changing all the time, and especially since I used to be a 911 operator, I've seen firsthand the mental health issues and the abundance of calls that they get that are mental health related. And so for me personally, I mean, this is one of the best purchases I think that we can make for our citizens and for our police officers, because not only does that untie some of the resources so you can go respond to other emergencies that need police officers, but it reduces jail costs because you're not taking people who don't need to be in the jail, and getting them the resources that they need. And that's one of the other things I appreciate about the city of Spokane and their Envision Center. I think that was a great thing for the citizens as well. We have a smaller version of that called Spokane Valley Partners that provides resources as well. And so this is just something that I think is really great for our city, and I really look forward to see what an impact it'll have.
Let's deal with some controversy. It seems like there's always controversy whenever you read the paper anymore.
Yes.
But I was reading the paper, and there seems to be quite a bit of controversy. Matter of fact, I think there's an op-ed in the paper Sunday concerning Mayor Higgins' decision that, really to cut the free speech and quite frankly, contact with the council from your citizens. Can you kind of give a perspective that maybe that article, I don't know if it was totally biased, but I would like to hear from the council themselves as far as, what is the issue here?
Well, for me personally, I mean, freedom of speech, regardless of whether or not I agree or disagree with it, is fundamental. I mean, me personally, I would rather sit and talk to somebody who has a differing opinion. It refines my own views and I might learn something. So for me, it's hard to sit through and listen to somebody give you constructive criticism, but unfortunately, in our job, that's what we're there to do. People elected us to listen. We need to represent our citizens. And so even though technically in the law it states that public comment is not a right, it's a privilege, I still believe that it is a right. And so for us personally, as a council, we decided, let me go back a little bit. So there was a gentleman who came and gave public comment, and I'm not sure what his intentions were, but he did go over the 3-minute time limit. And so he had been asked to stop talking, and he kept talking. And so instead of taking a different approach, the mayor decided to end the meeting. We took a recess. And instead of going back to the public comment, he decided that we were just going to move forward with business. And so that, didn't really make a lot of people very happy, me included, because I would prefer to make sure everybody feels as though they're heard. And so we revisited it the next week, and they decided that they, thought that it was fine the way that it went. And so our city attorney jumped in and said, we really need to talk about this. And so they brought back a compromise on Tuesday. And so basically it'll be said at the beginning of the meeting, you have a 3-minute time limit. This is what's going to happen. If you go over your 3-minute time limit, you'll get a warning. If you don't heed the warning, then we'll go ahead and suspend the public comment, and then we'll take a recess. And then when we come back, we'll say again, anybody who goes over their time limit, public comment will be done. Even though I'm not exactly 100% on board with that, because I still feel that is, freedom of speech, and we should give them the privilege to be able to come and speak to us. But I felt like the mayor and our staff and city attorney had a compromise, and Linda Thompson was part of that conversation as well. And so I'm really in the interest of trying to work together as a council and come to a consensus. I want to kind of get away from the controversy, and I want us to be able to work together. And ultimately, we're a team, regardless of whether or not we agree or disagree, and we need to make sure that our citizens feel like they're heard.
I can understand bits and pieces of the mayor's frustration at times, because you have important business that you have to get to. But at the same time, I think people forget that we were elected by the people to listen.
Absolutely.
And sometimes people can be quite passionate in what they have to say, and 3 minutes may not be long enough. But to basically ban public comment as it appeared, if you read the papers and everything, it was fading that way. I was astonished that any elected official would ever dream of going that direction.
We were pretty shocked ourselves, but ultimately, you know, he is the presiding officer over the meeting, and that's what he felt he needed to do, and we disagreed, and so, you know, I feel like it's an okay compromise for us moving forward, and it doesn't mean we can't revisit the conversation. I really don't like that there's any hindrance on any of the public comment, but at least this way, he's giving a warning, and, you know, we can try to avoid that so people can come and give their public comment, and whether it be constructive criticism or praise, whatever it may be. Like you said, we are elected, and we need to listen, and, you know, their voices do matter.
Another infamous Spokane area topic, roads.
Yes.
Roads, potholes, that whole gambit. Honestly, I'm still amazed that the state of Washington hasn't banned studded tires. Studded tires are one of the major contributing factors to the cost of maintenance of our roads, and they really don't provide that much more safety. Matter of fact, having driven studded tires as a patrolman, you find very rapidly that they're actually more dangerous if there's no snow on the ground. You actually lose traction if there's no snow on the ground. So with that in mind, it seems that the valley always has a deficit or is pending deficit in this area. What's going to take place to bridge that gap, or is there a tax increase coming in line, or where's the money going that should be going to roads?
Well, so for people who don't know, the vehicle motor tax and then the telephone tax is what we use to fund our maintenance and preservation of our roads. So the telephone tax is about 1.5 million anticipated this year, and then the vehicle motor tax is about 2 million. And so on average, we spend about 5 million annually on our road preservation and maintenance. So we did have a deficit, and we have for the last couple of years. However, we are in a good economic place, and so from 2017, we rolled over $7 million. And so it's surplus money. It is not reserves. It is surplus. And so for that, we use that money for capital projects. And so for the last 2 years, we have taken out of the surplus money and funded our deficit. It's not a long-term solution. It's definitely not a permanent solution. However, when we are in the place where we are economically, it makes sense to be able to use those funds towards that deficit rather than having a tax. I personally don't feel like we need a tax. We do need to come up with a different permanent solution. However, you can't really go to the citizens and say, hey, we have $7 million in surplus, but we're going to go ahead and raise your taxes. That doesn't make sense. And we really need to use the money that we have and be good stewards and be fiscally responsible. And we are. Our staff does a very good job. They give us lots of heads up and make sure that we understand what's going on and where money's coming from and things of that sort. And so in this particular problem, we have dwindling taxes. People don't have landline telephones anymore. And so that's been steadily decreasing over the past few years. I believe since 2009, it's been a 5.37% decrease. And so we definitely need to look at it. However, we do have really good roads. We just had a consultant come in and look at our pavement condition index, and each road gets a number. And so we are doing a very good job of keeping our roads maintained. You know, if you go across the border, you can kind of see the difference between Spokane Valley and the city of Spokane. And, you know, we can always be doing a better job. However, for me, a tax just doesn't seem reasonable.
Some people may not understand landline phone tax versus cell phone tax and things like that. Most of your roads are funded by the landline, not the cell arena, if I understand correctly.
Yes.
And even in the 911 arena, emergency 911, we have watched those cell phone or the hardline tax, the landline tax plummet, and it is starting to cause a deficit. That's why the state took the time to put a tax on the cell phone lines to make up that difference. There's always been the controversy since November of 2016 election night of 2016, when the mayor and members of the council tried to bring a utility tax up for the public.
Yes.
And, it's something that they deny, but it's hard to deny when you read it in the paper, and, Ed Pace is saying this is the only thing we can do. Where do you see that issue? You kind of spoke to it that, we have a $7 million surplus. How can you be asking people to increase their taxes if you have this? Let's say we have another downturn in the economy. Do you see a utility tax on the horizon?
I personally, I don't like the utility tax idea, and I'll tell you why. I've had a couple conversations with some of our utility providers, and really more than half, and I don't have the numbers, but I might be able to get them, but I was told that more than half of their consumers are on warning notices. People can't afford their utilities as it is. I mean, we're in a weird time right now, and people are trying to pay their bills, and so utilities, I don't feel like that's in the best interest of our citizens. I don't know if there's like a multifaceted approach that we might be able to do, so that way it's kind of spread out more evenly and more of a fair tax. I mean, it's inevitable. There's going to probably have to be a tax sometime in the near future. I just don't believe that the utility tax is where I would like to look at. I know there's different, they have the transportation benefit districts, they have the car tabs, we could take the property tax increase, and we have the banked capacity. So, I mean, there's lots of different options that we could do. I just feel like I don't want to put our citizens who are already vulnerable in a spot where they can't pay their utilities.
Well, and that was one of the central highlights of those who formed the city of the Valley was we won't do this. We won't have these type of, regressive taxes.
Right.
And, again, since November of 2016, election night, we started seeing, members of the council starting to move that way. The mayor starting to move that way. And I think it's important that people understand that, we need to do everything that we can to keep the cost down. At the same time, we have to be really wise on how we're going to increase revenues in an era of ever increasing costs.
Right, absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about parks.
Yes.
Acquiring more parks, improving parks. Great idea. Where's your thought process on that? Because when I say great idea, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek when it comes down to we have so many pressing issues out there.
Right.
I'm not sure parks would be in my priority list at this time. You have a mental health crisis, you have a homeless crisis. Quite frankly, the city of the Valley hasn't increased its law enforcement since inception, 2003. That day is coming. All these things are starting to come to a head, if you will.
Right.
So talk to me about parks.
Well, for a city our size, we are severely lacking in parkland. And so we are updating our park master plan. And so we've had a few meetings where we've had citizens come and give input, and many of them felt as though we didn't have a sufficient amount of parks. One, as you stated, increasing costs. Parks are free. And so, we want to make sure that people have ways to be able to have fun with their families and make memories and have a community. And so we did some digging, and we've been talking to some people, and we've acquired some parkland. We haven't acquired any parkland or bought any in I think like 3 or 4 years. And so it was definitely something that we needed to do. However, it is definitely not a first priority. It just happened that a lot of these things came about at the same time. And so we did just double our acreage at Sullivan Park right there by the mall. And so we're really excited about that, for one of the reasons being that there are water rapids there that we're actually really well known for, that we haven't really capitalized on. And so in the future, we're hoping to drive some business and get people here and see how great of a community we do have. And so with that being the focus of the parks, it's not necessarily that we're just trying to acquire parkland, but also that we're trying to drive business and drive people to Spokane Valley and see how great of a community we have.
One of the things that the Sheriff's Office is working on is developing our own academy. We can save projected savings of anywhere from $500,000 to $800,000 a year by doing that. The Valley Council has been fairly supportive of that effort. You want to talk a little bit about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I was extremely ecstatic when I found out that we were able to secure 2 of the basic law enforcement academies here in Spokane. People, I don't think, realize how expensive it is, 1, to travel over to Burien to be able to get there and get the training that you need to be able to do your job. 2, the per diem is pretty outrageous, and also the travel to getting back and forth. And, to be able to go over to Burien, I mean, it's a great experience. I've been over there. However, they only allow so many spots for our law enforcement officers. And so when law enforcement officers are waiting to get over there, they accept jobs other places. And so that's why we've had a hard time filling some of our positions. So I'm absolutely ecstatic that the legislature felt that we needed this, and I think it's going to be great.
And we're going to double down on that by creating our own academy.
I'm very excited.
And that way we won't be at the beck and call of the state as far as being able to find the academy slots. Last topic, we have about 2 minutes left. Another controversy.
All right.
Consolidation of the regional communication system. It's something that has been talked about for 30 plus years. Something that I've been part of working on for 13. About every 2 years we tried this. It finally happened. Your thoughts?
It's really hard for me because there's pros and cons to each thing. And so, as you said, this conversation's been happening for a long time. It was happening when I was there. The pros that I see about this is that the redundancy that you get when you call. So when you call 911, if people don't know, there's certain things that you have to say before you can, transfer the call to another agency. And so, not having to do that, you're saving anywhere from 60 to 90 seconds, depending on how fast your call taker is. And so, that could save somebody's life. However, we were unique in that we had, that setup there, and it's worked. If it's not broke, don't fix it. However, we do have to keep in mind that our citizens come first, and maybe we'll see some good out of this. I really hope so. But in the past, I wasn't really sure that I was on board. But we'll see what happens. But I do know that their heart's in the right place, and so I'm really hoping that this does come out good for citizens and for the people who are working there.
I can tell you that it will. The biggest naysayers have been the unions, and that's just the hard reality. And that's why the city of Spokane didn't come on board, is that council is controlled by Local 29. I hate to break that to you folks, but that is the truth. It is time. Folks, it's been a pleasure visiting with you, Brandi.
Thank you so much.
I hope that things go well for you. I believe it's an election year for you this year.
It is.
So good luck in that.
Thank you very much.
This is Sheriff Ozzie with the Sheriff's Report. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Sheriff's Report is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksMedia.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Sheriff's Report is sponsored by River Ridge Hardware. Ask Ozzie a question, recommend a guest, or hear this program again on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com.